Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to France, where we bring you the opening round of the 2023 Season 2 Endurance for Amateurs Championship at the famous circuit of the 24-hour Le Mans. We're in for a 100-minute race with both A and B groups of LMP2 and GT3 cars. I am joined in the booth by my co-host, Zach Nurnberger. Zach, what are you looking forward to in this race, and what do you think will be the biggest challenge for these drivers?
I think one of the biggest challenges is actually going to be the start. I know we have a different rule set, but just so many cars bum drafting, nose to tail. This could will be chaos.
Yeah, it's one that that draft is going to be a pretty big deal coming down that straight because this is the historic circuit, so no chicanes to slow you down. It's probably a minute and a half on throttle.
Oh man, it must be. You better bring a good book because it can definitely get lonely down there.
Yeah, one thing I'm pretty interested in with this season is that we have a new class system. So there will be an A and a B class of both car classes, like I mentioned. However, that'll be determined based on qualifying. So the top 35% rounded up, they will be in the A class, and the rest will be in B, and that goes for both groups. And with that, we will then have if you are in the top 35% in any of your first three races, you're in A for the rest of the season. If you don't make the top 35%, you're in B. And so we'll be able to get some guys who, traditionally weren't finding themselves on the podium, actually, fighting for a podium of their A or B class. However, all the points matter. So a B, if a B class GT3 driver were to win the race ahead of all the A guys, he gets the 49 points, and the points go down from there just like the normal distribution.
Absolutely, and remember, if you don't qualify, it does not count towards your top 35 qualifying attempts. So no sandbagging either.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we don't want. You don't want any sandbagging. So you will have to make an actual attempt on a lap. But with this circuit, the qualifying is going to be a little bit different because I think that cars with the speed advantage down the back straight. I know when I was doing some testing, I noticed that the Audi seemed to generally be the one that had the best speed down that back straight, and it was gaining almost half a second on the rest of the field.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. Some people do the research, others don't. Definitely be interesting on car choice. See what kind of stuff people bring to the track this time. BMW usually really popular, so let's see what they got.
Yeah, and another thing to bring up is that there were some minor updates made between the two seasons, between last season and this season, and most of it had to do with the anti-lock brakes. So supposedly it should be a little bit more forgiving. The drivers in the GT3 cars, obviously the LMP2 is no ABS, but the drivers in the GT3 cars should feel more confident being really aggressive in the braking zones, and ideally should probably even out the field a little bit.
Yeah, it'll be interesting going into the Mulsanne. No bus stops to warm the brakes up, so might get some nice ice cold brakes going into that straightaway there.
Yeah, absolutely. I probably will be a point of action at the start of this race, and down that straight, I think we'll see it the whole time. With the fuel, normally for the rest of the season, LMP2s will be at 100% fuel just like this race. However, the GT3s will be at 75% fuel for this race. Normally, they would be at 50%. So we'll have a little bit longer stints than we initially we would have for the other races that we're going to have, with the exception of Daytona. But it'll still be a two-stopper because it'll probably go, what do you think, around 45 minutes, maybe closer to 40 on a stint?
Yeah, I'm thinking so, and I think the fixed setup also has 45% to start the race, so they can refuel to 75. But I believe they have even less at the start.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, good point. I do believe that's how that is. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. As we have just had our first few qualifying laps put in for the LMP2s that are coming across the line. Terry Calgary Jr. on provisional pole right now, 1.6 seconds ahead of Paul Skip. An interesting thing to watch for this season: our reigning champion Nick Terrell may not be able to attend many of the races. Patrick Ripley, another strong driver, may not be able to attend many of the races. Tyler Langenberg who was our second place for both last season and the season before, he said that he'll be busy and probably won't be able to attend most or if any of the races. So it's a totally wide open championship, and Obviously, Paul Skip there on the screen and Terry Kiger Jr. there in first are probably two of the favorites.
Absolutely, and Nicholas Paletti putting in purple sectors in sector 1, 3, and 5 to put it on pole by almost 9/10 of a second over Adrian Garcia.
Yeah, he's in that BMW, like you said, a popular pick. However, look at that in the top 4. We got BMW, Ferrari, Mercedes, and Porsche. So a lot of equality there in the car classes. But yeah, purple sectors, multiple of them is going to help you get on pole. But nearly a second ahead of Adrian Garcia Vigil is quite a feat.
As well as Brad McCombs purple sector in sector 4, and that puts him in 3rd place. So good job so far.
A lot of drivers putting in their first lap now, so obviously we're seeing a lot of greens down there because that's just comparing it to their out lap. But after that, we'll be seeing some more competition. And what are you expecting? Do you think that these first laps are probably going to be the best shot, or do you think that it's going to get a little more temperature in the tires and get some more pace on these second or third laps?
Well, normally you come with the tires that heat up, and maybe the second, third lap is best. The long straights will probably keep them cool. Be interesting. I'm not really sure.
We have a couple new names out there in the field. Anthony Dring there in the LMP2 is one. Sam Syed there in the GTD field is also another. And Kevin Berquist there. So a few new faces. Interested to see how they do and how competitive is. Speaking of competitive, we see Daniel Real there has put in a purple sector for sector 1 and then a few green sectors. So he might see a pretty good time from the guy who's already in 4th place.
Absolutely, and you can just see the gaps. Even up to 15th place, 4 seconds, just such a technical track. Good exit. It's really tricky to qualify front.
I guess
tricky if it's looking to keep.
While we're at Daniel Real, how about you walk us through a lap here as he comes down in turn 1?
Going in the Dunlap. Really easy here to overcook it and run wide. Also really easy to cut if you try and be too aggressive. And coming into turns 4 and 5 here. Again, really easy with the downhill, the off camber to just push it a little too far. Going into Tetra Rouge here. Gotta make sure you don't cut it as he's coming up here. A little wiggle to keep it straight. Coming into Tetra Rouge, don't want to cut it too hard. Don't want to also swing too wide. Slow down either way. Ooh, gets a little loose, and that's going to hurt him all the way down the straight. And there's a nice long wait here, as we were talking about. No bus stops, keep entertaining. You're going to really want to make sure you get a good exit all the way down here.
Yeah, it's already, Tetra Rouge is already a very important corner in the normal layout, but even more so when you're going to be on throttle for such a long period of time here.
You can see him topping out on all the red lights on the dash there in 6th gear. Only the first bus stop.
There's no benefit of the draft right now, but as Jeff McDonald there just barely edging out Nicholas Paletti, putting it on pole. And then Paul Boyle hops in by a 6/10 gap. Paul Boyle, our champion last season from the GTD Pro, still quick.
Straight here to keep tires warm.
Yeah, I know. It's probably, like you said, cold tires, cold brakes. It's going to be somewhat of an issue.
You've got to make sure you spot your braking point. People really like to hit that cone there and mess with you as well. Don't joke around about it, but makes it tricky. Brakes going here. Don't want to run it too wide, and you can also get a corner cut without hitting the bollards there. That's a really good job getting through, using all the track. And a bit of another long straight. You're not quite as long, but once again, really good. Front track on the DB. Split screen. That's very something on for that. You lock up here, you're going straight for the toe. You gotta be careful on that tire wall.
Yeah, that may be the most dangerous part of the track there for sure.
Yeah, another tricky braking spot here. Don't want to run it too wide in the exit. You have a lot of track. It's really easy to get stuck into that tire wall. Set yourself up for a good exit here, coming into the Porsche curves, support that curve as well. Gotta be very careful. Tire temperatures as well. The rears tires tend to overheat, and those high-speed corners can really break loose. See him fighting the car over here. outside wall. I'm sure. Oh, just like that. I'm sure we'll see a lot of people lose the toe as it breaks loose again, as talking about. Another tricky corner coming into the Ford chicane here. Don't want to run too wide. Slow down. Back to the entry, rather. The talking point is very difficult. Get it nice and wide into the Ford chicane here. Make sure you hit both those apexes. And you're kind of just breaking through the entire thing, but you want to make sure you don't play off too much speed. Don't go up the curves too hard. Avoid the gravel and get a nice run up to the line there. Two green sectors, 342. I believe puts in.
So we can see there, Adrian Garcia Vigil in that GT3 class. We saw him in the LMP2 a lot in last season, but he has put himself in second place and is only 3/10 off our leader, Paul Boyle. I think it's fair to say that it's not a surprise that Paul Boyle's up there at the front, but 3/10 is closer than most people were in either class, AM or Pro, last season to Paul.
And what they're talking about with that slipstream too. 3/10 maybe on normal track is a lot, but definitely not here at all. A lot of spots to gain and lose time, so.
Well, Terry Cager Jr. has gained plenty of time up at the front with a 1.2 second gap to Don McCloy. Don McCloy slipping himself, well, he's off the track there, but slipping himself into the conversation there. However, Terry Cager Jr. with a massive lead in the opening round here, trying to establish himself as the favorite for the championship.
Definitely, and I wonder what your opinion is, EP. Would you rather be on pole here and worry about the slipstream, or would you rather be in the middle and kind of slipstream off people here?
Well, I will say, first off, the no passing rule does make it a little bit nicer to be in front, just because you have that chance of it's going to be through the Dunlop chicane, but you'll have a couple turns to maybe try to pull a little bit of a gap before you get to that Mulsanne straight. But I mean, honestly, I think this straight is so long that you can get past with the draft, and you can regain the draft from them and pass them back in time before you even get to the end. And actually, when I was doing some testing, I was watching the AI run through this track. A lot of times that was happening. They were switching positions multiple times down the straight.
Really make it interesting. I know some people might come with a different qualifying strategy. So let's see. Yeah, it might just be kind of a bloodbath until it spreads out a little bit.
You can see there Eric Claybaugh moving his way up in second place with the GT3s. Just behind Paul Boyle, and that's a pretty good time there. Paul Boyle's with a 3:41, only 2/10 back to Claybaugh.
Yep, the BMW's doing really good. Claybaugh, Boyle, Pletty, and Curry, 4 of the top 6 all in BMWs. Ferrari's doing pretty strong as well.
21 seconds between the classes. Does seem like that the lapping probably, at least for the majority of the field, probably won't happen even until after the first pit stops for both classes, which the pit stops actually coincidentally should be around, well, I guess you're right about the fuel being short, so it will be first for the GT class.
It doesn't make it easy on us either with the 2 different fuel tank sizes, but make it a little bit harder on these guys for the strategy, but hey, that's half the battle, right? Gotta come with the game plan. The tires also wearing out a lot more now as well, so that will put a lot more tire strategy on the GT3 cars also.
Yeah, obviously we lose the strategy of, if you take tires for the most part, with the exception of the, we splash and dash that you have at the end. But then, like I said, the degradation, meaning that these drivers are going to have to take care of the tires, and it's a lot harder to do that even over, a 45-minute stint.
And you're always probably going to run into a situation where you have some sort of splash and dash or half tank, and you can take tires and fuel at the same time, but is it worth it depending on, the pit stop length as well?
Coming to the close of this qualifying session, 20 seconds remain. Steve Cube there, finally, all 13 of our 13 LMP2s have put in a time, and all but one of our GT3s has put in a time. It's a big field of 44 drivers I'm seeing.
Yeah, Paul Boyle looks like 3 greens and a purple sector so far, trying to top off this or end off this qualifying session here with another really good lap. And that's going to wrap it up.
Yep. And so we have this 5-minute warm up. We will be right back as we get the classes sorted out. right, welcome back. We are here. Got these qualifying results figured out. Sorry we didn't have time to read them out for you. We had a lot of work to do behind the scenes to get these classes sorted out, so future races will be able to, but you can see there on our standings, we're going to be starting this single file, and there will be no passing until after the Dunlop chicane.
Absolutely, and looks like we have 44 cars taking the field today. So going to be a lot of on-track action, which is perfect for such a big track.
I can see there that Ryan Jeevan may not have taken the grid, but 43 drivers have. I don't know if Jeevan is currently in the session, but yeah, 43 cars to start this race. It's going to be a bit hectic coming down that back straight. Not really sure who we're going to be able to follow.
I know Nick Terrell is not shy of bump drafting here, so we're going to see him, I'm sure, pushing everybody.
Yeah, it'll be pretty useful, too. I think that we'll see some teamwork, although Nick Terrell's not right behind Terry Calgar Jr. like we saw many races last season where they worked together doing some bump drafting.
Yeah, but I think that's going to be the strategy. I think you're going to have to make some friends, help push the pack and break away. Otherwise, you're going to get swallowed up pretty quickly.
That Porsche safety car coming now through the final chicanes. Terry Calgar Jr. leading them. He will go on the green, and everyone will follow.
Badge on the LMP2 as well.
Green, green, green.
And he's got the green flag, so we are live here at Le Mans for the race opener. No passing until turn 2. We can already see a couple people pulling out wide. You got to get back in line. Terry Calgar Jr. looks confidently ahead of Don McCloy coming through the Dunlop chicane. I don't see any issues behind, and he maintains the lead. So we'll have to see how this pans out when we get to the straight, but right now he's still half a second on Don McCloy behind.
Still cars, it looks like, just taking the start-finish line still. Terry's almost on the back straight. Looks like everyone through nice and clean. So far, so good.
I think that we have gotten pretty clean. A couple position changes there in the LMP2 field. Steve Cubet has already made his way up 3 spots from 13th to 10th, as Nick Terrell and John Kelly both losing a couple positions. Looks like something may have happened with Nick Terrell. Let's see here. He just towed to the pits. Very start of the race. Well, something happened there, that's for sure.
Yeah, I wonder if he had some sort of connection issue and he just lost it there or something.
Yeah, we saw a couple other drivers involved there. Anthony Dring, I believe, was one. And then I think we saw John Kelly's car off as well. But behind, Paul Skip attempting to pull out to the side of Don McCloy. I don't know if he had quite enough draft. Yeah, he's going to have to probably pull back in and do a little bit more pushing because he's got to worry about Bryce Anderson there behind.
Classic student driver car. I can't miss that one. Nice and bright yellow.
Josh Doty losing spots. I believe that he probably went wide there at Torture Rouge and had to slow down, lost down to 15th, 6 spots down. As Paul Skip on the inside, Don McCloy's on the outside. Looks like Paul Skip got a better run out. Bryce Anderson's attacking behind him. He may get 3 wide here.
Man, it's all kicking off now. See if anyone tries to get brave here.
It certainly looks confident for Bryce Anderson there. He's sticking his nose in. Doesn't really know who to follow right now, as we see even wider Patrick Ripley there trying to take a 3-way. Goes back to the behind of Don McCloy, coming down Indianapolis and Arnage. And Paul Skip's going to maintain that lead much faster through. Don McCloy hangs back just a little bit, trying to take it a little bit easy at the start of this race.
Yep. You gotta make it through to finish and win. So all these guys looking to make positions, but also rivals as well. See Paul Boyle there, the leader of the GT3 pack.
Look how gentle he is on that wheel. He's a smooth driver. There's no questioning that. He's really babying that wheel, but I mean, he's got a closing in on pulling 2 seconds ahead of Garcia Vigil behind, who's up 1 position. You see Aaron Claybaugh has lost 6 positions, so must have had something happen to him in the first part of this lap, but can't be anything too bad. It has not had to tow like, unfortunately, we've had Nick Terrell. But Nick Terrell, our only casualty of the race. Even Ryan Jeevan there must have come out of the pits and started in the pits, and you can see him there in the back of the field, not too far back.
unfortunate start to the season for Nick Terrell. Not sure, he probably had a toe, so he will be not quite a lap down actually, but definitely off to a rough start. But a 100-minute race, so he's plenty of time to make it back.
Yeah, we can see here John Kelly and Anthony Dring, both LMP2s that were involved in, I believe, that incident that happened earlier. We at least saw John Kelly's car off track, and unfortunately they're tasked with the very difficult task of making their way through this 30-plus car field for the GT3s, and this is going to hurt because you lose time from being off track, but you lose even more time having to make your way through this entire field and, try not to ruin anybody's race.
I was just about to say the same thing. You already took one punishment from falling back in the field, and now you gotta weave in and out of all these cars without taking more people out. Unfortunately, they'll have no traffic ahead to help them.
As we pull back to Patrick Ripley here at the front, Terry Kyer Jr. has pulled a commanding 3 seconds to Paul Skip behind. But these three guys, all behind, or four guys, Paul Skip, Bryce Anderson, Don McCloy, Patrick Ripley, all maintaining very close to each other, with really Andrew Neri and Antoine DeCache not that far off right behind him.
Yeah, good job by Terry Kyer Jr. to get clear that pack for that 3 seconds. I thought it was going to be a lot trickier just with the draft train, but he did manage to find a way, with everyone fighting behind him.
Patrick, you see those sparks flying off the cars that come down full speed. Patrick Ripley getting a real big slingshot, trying to go to the outside of Bryce Anderson. Bryce Anderson's going to do a little bit of bump drafting potentially with Paul Skip. I think Patrick Ripley may make this conversation coming onto the Mulsanne hairpin.
Bryce Anderson, it's going to take him 3 wide, but Patrick Ripley inside, get the stick.
Paul Skip fighting him on the outside. A little bit of a drift for Paul Skip. Loses the drive on the outside. He's going to have to worry more about Bryce Anderson behind than trying to catch up to Patrick Ripley ahead.
Might get a little help from Bryce Anderson, though, if Bryce wants to work with him. We'll see. Looks like he just lost too much momentum, though, to get him here.
See, it's just as close for this GT3 field back here. Even more so an issue with all these cars being slightly different. We can see that Ford being represented there by Gareth McAllister up in 8th place, doing quite well as he makes his way around Aaron Claybaugh. A little bit of a NASCAR situation there, forming lines and using that draft. And is he going to pass everybody? Gareth McAllister gets around all 3 drivers coming into the Mulsanne hairpin. That's plus 3 positions. He timed exiting that draft perfectly.
This Ford is just, it's always been, the slower car, quote unquote, but in a straight line, man, it seems fine.
Yeah, of almost any track, this has to be one of the ones that utilizes its strengths the most. We'll see how it is able to handle a whole race pace distance, but Gareth McAllister is flying right now, up 3 positions, and we saw those 3 positions made right there in one corner.
Absolutely. The one and only Australian driver in the field here today. Off to a really good start. Went about as well as he could have hoped for.
A little bit further up the track, you can see Jeff McDonald there trying to hunt down Adrian Garcia Vigil. He's only got 3 tenths now coming into the Porsche curves, both in the Ferrari, so Ferrari looking like a good choice, as normally is a pretty stable car, but really, surprisingly, despite the fact that Garcia Vigil is being pressured by McDonald, they've actually caught up to Paul Boyle ahead.
Guys are working really well together. Paul Boyle, I thought, had a several-second lead at one point, but everyone working together to push back up front there. And good job by Joshua Doty as well to recover from his mistake, up in the P14 now.
Yeah, that's it's important to make that recovery. Josh Doty, the one of the drivers that qualified there in the A class, so he's got some stiff competition coming up, but we can see there he's just a second behind Sasha Kempter there in 14th, and absolutely has the capability of making up some more positions.
Like I said, every position now counts for points, so even these AM drivers as well, they're all going to matter.
See Christopher Newby here trying to catch up to James Foreman ahead. He's been faster in almost James Foreman faster in almost every sector, but Christopher Newby's still there. We saw Newby in the LMP2 last season and rejoining the GT3s after his champ. Ooh, going really wide there in front, but rejoining the GT3 class after being the AM champion 2 seasons ago.
Yep, and he's hasn't missed a beat as well, up in the top 10 already. Off to a strong start.
Antoine
Right in
DeCash
the
here
back
makes
of,
a double pass here coming down the straight.
Ripper too. And overtaken.
Nice double move going down there. It looks like he timed it just about as well as Gareth McAllister had behind.
Yeah, that slipstream is an absolute rocket ship.
You can see Nicholas Paletti there. He's very, very close behind Brad McCombs. Brad McCombs also a driver who was in the LMP2 last season. We're seeing him here in the GT3, running that Mercedes and looking quite competitive to start in this opening round.
Too wide here. So make a move. That Ford's still leading out in front there of the pack.
Yeah, they're struggling to keep up with them coming down this straight. You're not really seeing much of a draft, and Brad McCombs has to pull back behind Nicholas Paletti as Paletti makes his way around. Looks like we had something happen with the Angel Jarena. Okay, well, that had already happened there. Hit that pretty much square on. Wouldn't surprise me if he had some engine damage to that car.
I'm really surprised it's still going, to be honest with you. Kind of impressive, but look at the tow back to the pits. Get a hammer on it, hopefully be right back out.
Yeah, we can see he's still out there on the track, on that track map. So still kicking. I'm surprised because I believe that was near the end of the lap. So had the opportunity to come into the pits, but decided not. Up at the front of our LMP2 class, Terry Kiger Jr. looking extremely strong. We can see there 6.3 second gap to the driver behind, which is Bryce Anderson.
Terry Kiger doing his Max Verstappen impression so far. Still gonna nail the pit strategy. Ooh, getting a little loose there. At least it looked like he was. He's definitely not holding back, is he?
I don't think I've ever seen Terry hold it back. So even if he's winning by a whole minute, he's always pushing. So it doesn't surprise me to see him putting in some fast laps right now. You can see lap 1, 3 seconds faster than Bryce Anderson behind. Lap 2 was 5 seconds faster.
Yeah, Terry is definitely, he's not saving the engine for anything.
Engineering's a interesting story to follow there. He's made his way up 3 spots, and he's up there in 3rd, just behind Bryce Anderson. He's in the B class right now. Obviously, he still has the opportunity of making his way to A class the next couple races, but he was the first guy out in this race here, and already looking pretty strong. Had a strong end to last season. Last few races definitely had a lot of pace, and starting off strong here.
Absolutely, Engineering, really strong driver. Just ran into a lot of bad luck, it seemed. Bryce Anderson, the slowdown maybe?
Yeah, that must have been what that was there. So Angineri takes advantage of that, moves his way up into 2nd place. Obviously, way down the road for Terry Kiger Jr. But at least these two have a safe gap to Paul Skip behind.
There's anything we learned from the preseason is the pit stops do matter. So there's still, you got to nail your marks in the pit box. Really tricky pit entry. Really easy to get penalties. So Terry's not out of the woods yet.
So Gareth McAllister made his way around Nicholas Paletti here. Had got past and into the Ford chicanes, takes advantage, uses the inside, commands that track there. We saw he was ahead of those two before, had lost the spot to Nicholas Paletti, but regained it in a fantastic overtake there. It's some of the tightest chicanes in racing.
Really difficult spot to make the pass. Really easy to get on the sausage curb as well and damage the car. So good job making the move there. We have Adrian Garcia as well, right behind Jeff McDonald for P2 and P3 respectively.
Yeah, we saw Jeff McDonald trying to chase down Adrian Garcia last lap and has made his way around, but Garcia's down the straight. He's got the draft, and McDonald doesn't have much help in front.
Like that little battle there helped Paul Boyle to pull the gap about 1.5 seconds extra, but maybe Jeff here will work with him.
Yeah, it would be in their best interest, and it looks like that's probably what they're doing right now. They need to be able to catch back up. They were close to Paul Boyle behind. They were less than 1 second, and their battling has taken them now over 2 seconds behind the leader.
A little cautious here, though. You do let people lock them up there, but obviously you don't want to take them around with you, but maybe get some more aggressive as the race goes on.
Barnett there, one of the drivers who has gained the most positions in the race so far. He's up 4 spots. A lot of guys are up 4. A few guys, unfortunately, with some incidents, down some. As we can see, Aaron Clayball, one who's down 6, has yet to be able to make up too many of the positions, but certainly mired in a good battle there with Paletti, McCombs, McAllister.
Williams doing a really good job. Good to see him returning back to the league as well, up in 17th.
See his car there, hunting down that pack in front. Looks like he's got a pretty comfortable gap behind, about 2.5 seconds to Rick Hughes, but is looking at the back of Josh Doty right now, who something must have happened to Doty to lose a couple more positions, which, speaking of something happening, Steve Cubay may have had an incident here. So coming down into the final chicanes here in the Ford, maybe he just clobbers one of these curbs. No, just loses it a little bit on the... What do you think happened there?
Kind of hard to tell. Looks like he might have took a little narrow entry, maybe pushed wide. Just a little too much steering lock to try and get it straightened out again. Just brought the rear around, but luckily no damage.
Yeah, certainly preferable than putting it in the wall. Bryce Anderson still behind Angianeri. Had lost that spot from that slowdown that he had in Tertre Rouge, but throughout that entire lap, Angianeri still maintaining that position, but it's going to be tough to defend coming down the straight here with only 2/10.
Pretty good job leading off that slowdown as well to try and stay in the draft here, use his pace. Let's see if he also works together, although Terry Calger is just flying, so it's going to be really difficult. We're going to make a move there, side corner of it. Got a long way to go down the straight. Really just better off just staying there, using the aero draft, the bubble, to get both of you moving a lot quicker. Side by side, not gonna really help.
In that lap time comparison there, we see a really interesting lack of consistency as Neri was over a second slower lap 1, over a second faster lap 2, over a second slower lap 3, over a second faster lap 4. So that's pretty good evidence to how Terry Calger has pulled a little bit of tires squeal in there in Bryce Anderson's car. But Terry Calger Jr. pulling that 7-second gap, certainly thanks to some of this battling behind him.
And I think a bit of that too is just due to swap drafting. A little better lap time, just being behind, but definitely not helping like you're saying.
So Eric Jacobs may have an incident here off track. 8 seconds. Not a shocker. Those are some tough corners there in the Porsche curves.
Yep, it's only gonna get harder as the tires heat up, but keeps it out the barrier.
Nice looking cars. Oh, that was that was really close. That was very close.
Didn't cross the white line, but it was definitely brown pants moment there. But you know, we move on. Everyone's in one piece. Maybe not happy, but.
Gary Barber here, a guy is up 4 positions, started in 28th and 24th. Again, this is a massive GT3 field, so any spots gained will be useful come the end of the season, and especially with this A and B class. You know, A class is only going to get a little bit bigger as each race comes through, so no slouch, and of course making up more positions is going to be valuable because I would imagine that there's going to be some pretty popular races coming up later this season. Daytona is always one that everyone shows up to.
Daytona definitely fan favorite. Spa as well.
So Antoine Decache, I see making 2 passes. Okay, so there was an incident behind. That is what happened. That was a pretty big shunt into the wall that Antoine Decache had there. Hopefully his suspension's all right. I don't know if he has a meatball or not, but that's a pretty hefty hit.
He's going to drive away from it pretty well, but always tricky to tell. Even a little bit of aero damage goes a long way, especially here at Le Mans.
You see Paul Skip losing a couple positions at the start of this race. Again, we considered him certainly one of the guys that will be vying for the championship this season. Had a good qualifying performance. Would like to probably be up there a little bit more. You can see Skip on lap 3 and 4 must have invalidated. Ooh, getting a little bit loose there. It's already looking like those tires are hot because that was an interesting place to start to lose the car there for Skip.
And I'm starting to wonder maybe if this long straight doesn't really cool the tires down. You know, tracks like NASCAR and Daytona, all the energy in the tire actually warms it up. So maybe we're seeing more of that.
Jeff McDonald there as him and Adrian Garcia. He'll continue to swap places throughout this race and in third place. So they are unfortunately falling back from Paul Boyle ahead, but pulling away from Richard Curry somewhat in fourth place.
Absolutely. Off to a good start. Paul Boyle, still only 3-second gap though, so he's not pulling anything crazy. So they're not losing too much time, but we're only 18 minutes into this.
You can see Daniel Real there, up 3 spots. He had a good lap going in qualifying. Oh, and we can see Gareth McAllister coming into the pits. He looked like he had a little bit of damage to the front end of that car. I don't know if that was damage related or if that's still within the pit window.
That'd be interesting to see, like we're talking about.
Ooh, that's some bad damage.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the incident. Certainly clean coming in here.
Same thing we just saw earlier. A little too much curb.
Oh, wow. Oh, and what a dodge by Paletti. Wow.
Absolutely. Maybe he got lucky. It's kind of hard to tell if he actually got the tire barrier or the actual cement wall. Hopefully it's within his pit window. Looks like he's probably taking tires and doing the works there while he's in there.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not really going to be able to know that until the end of the race if that pans out. But 20 minutes in, we're kind of expecting the cars to, if they do start in that 45%, to really only go 25 minutes or so. So he may be able to survive this race yet. Steve Cubet there, driver who has made up 5 positions from where he started.
And it looks like Mark Dillon Jr. into the pits early, only 5 laps in. That's probably an unscheduled stop. Not sure if he got into an incident.
So he was off track for this, short off track here. I don't know if any collision came from this. And a new paint for his LMP2. No, just losing it in Mulsanne, no damage. That was earlier in the lap, so he towed there. That's why.
Really surprised he towed. Wonder if he's just calling it early. Hope not, but you never know.
You see here, 2 teammates here, Aaron Claybaugh and Nick Paletti, battling each other down the straight. Claybaugh pulling ahead of Paletti. Still a lot of straight to go, but makes his way by, and great move there.
His car is a little messed up, so he definitely got into it.
Yeah, that's I hope that works out all right, because I just with 90 minutes, I think the strategy will still work, but you can't really afford to have another incident, and we don't know how much time Patrick Ripley lost from whatever happened to him as well.
Patrick Ripley, though, really fast driver, so I expect him to make up for some lost time. To cash in the pits also. See, the number 30 car has some damage. I believe that was actually him we saw earlier going off. Be 4 tires and fuel for him.
You can see that very nice black and gold paint by Christopher Craig. Always a consistent finisher. He's the top runner right now for the B-class drivers in 9th place, ahead of a couple of the A guys, and he's up 3 spots overall, looking at just a few guys in front of him with newbie Claybaugh and Paletti.
Once again, I got to point out Joshua Doty already back on the 13th again after what looked like a second accident. He was down to 20-something spots. 20-something position, rather. And good job from him coming back. Andrew Malinowski, Daniel Real, along with Christopher Craig, your top 3 in the amateur class.
Yeah, it looks like the aforementioned Andy Malinowski there, Josh Doty, may be able to get him in just a few corners, has definitely caught up. And yeah, the down 4 positions doesn't really tell the whole story for Josh Doty's time after lap 1. He had dropped a good number of positions and is fighting back to get some decent points here.
Yeah, I think Josh Doty's going for that Sebastian Vettel overtake award. I think he's passed more cars than anyone so far.
Yeah, and then just to reiterate too, for everyone to keep in mind, as opposed to what we had last season, as Daniel Real, after what looked like he was serving a slowdown, burns it off and is making his way back around to Andy Malinowski. But the A and B class last season, the points were separate completely, so it didn't matter how they finished next switch. Oh, and there a little bit of smoke there.
Malinowski.
Daniel Real, he had gone off track here. Let's see what happened to him. Oh, there's a collision going into the Dunlop chicane.
You try and take a defensive line there, and probably just wasn't clear.
Dramatic spin-off, but luckily able to find that escape road pretty quickly and get back on track.
Rejoins nice and safe. Could have been a lot worse.
The
it looked like he just wasn't clear there. Tried to go defensive and just got turned a little bit.
Yeah, but what I was getting at with the points was, last season they were separate. This season they are not. So, Josh Doty, for example, there in 12th, he doesn't get the 10th place points for being 10th in the A class. He gets 12th overall points, and Christopher Craig there gets the 8th place points and not first place for B. So all of these positions matter whether they're facing each other in the overall standings at the end of the season or not. We just get even more racing, because there was a couple times people just let each other go by when they were in different classes last season. Luckily this season I think we'll get to have even more racing than we did last, as Christopher Newby there making his way around Nicholas Paletti. And another coming down the straight, so we see Nicholas Paletti's wipers running. Maybe that's rain confirmed for this race. See if he's Newby was able to hold the position. He's got just a bit of a nose ahead of Nicholas Paletti coming down to the Mulsanne hairpin here.
The BMW drag race.
Paletti lets him have it.
Yep. Paletti decided to live and see another day instead of finding out what happens. Probably pretty smart. You see Kerry Calgary Jr. there. It's about just under 8 seconds of lead here.
Yeah, you can see there, the last lap was the first one, and since lap 3, or I guess even including lap 3, that Bryce Anderson in second place there, who's made his way around Antoneri, actually was faster than Terry Carriger Jr. So you can see that gap has kind of stagnated at just under 8 seconds, which is what it was a while ago. So that's good news for Bryce. We're still early in the race, only 25 minutes in. He has the chance of catching up, and like you said, tire wear, tire management, fuel management even, those are big things that we haven't even seen affect the race yet.
It's such a long lap too, that even just saving 1 lap of fuel, you do that in 2 stints, that's 7 minutes of fuel you just saved right there. So even just that little bit of extra fuel saving goes a long, long way.
Jerry Barber there trying to hunt down Dan Coleman in front of him, coming through Indianapolis. Really tough corner, and that Lamborghini looks pretty stable through there. It can get pretty sketchy, especially once you get later into the stints, and certainly the tires would be starting to feel a little bit of a drop-off at this point as we get nearly half an hour in.
I'm glad to see some Lamborghini love out there. One of my favorite cars to drive. It looks awesome. So glad to see him out there with it. Is that the Lambo Calrissian paint?
Yes, it is his Lambo Calrissian.
That's the well-beloved paint scheme.
Yeah, Barber himself there is up 4 spots from the start of the race as well.
Jacobs must have had a little bit of an issue, but seems to be pulling a pretty consistent 2-ish seconds a lap there, so did a pretty good job pulling away.
Whoa, that was almost on an instant there. It's Dustin Dos Weiss looking ahead at Keith Williams. Looked like Williams a little bit slower than him going through that chicane, but Daniel Real coming up quick on both of those guys. We saw Real in an incident earlier in the Dunlop chicane, so trying to make up some positions, but still he had gained so much at the start of the race that he's broke even right now.
Keith Williams, he is the hard charger of the race. Daniel Barnett in looks like P19 in class, also up 6 spots with Keith Williams. Nothing too fancy, but nice and consistent. Pays off. Vice behind though. Not gonna with Danny Real and get that draft. They work together.
You can tell there Real definitely backing out of that, getting off the throttle, saving a little bit of fuel. Again, it's not
in the frame here.
Yeah,
well, they're getting a really good run.
Again, it's not so much that they're trying to go an extra lap necessarily, but if you save fuel, that's less you got to put in the car, less time spent in the pits, and especially with the fact that the tires are at the same time as fuel, it's a bigger effect. As we can now see all 3 of them. Looks like no one's trying to make a move, and they're just intent on going as fast as they can down the straight, catching up to a couple of those guys ahead of them. Josh Doty, the first one.
Yeah, Doty about 3-4 seconds up the field here, and they were working together. Looks like they're 2-3 wide now, though.
Doty himself could have made a move if he wanted, but decides to back out of it.
Malinowski did a really good job up P2 in class. Christopher Craig.
A
P7
little bit
overall
deep
for
by
him.
Keith Williams there, and Daniel Real swings on by.
Luckily, though, still in the big pack. I'm not sure who's behind Dustin Das Weiss. Didn't get around him, though, so he'll have a little help bump draft as well.
Yeah, you didn't hear a lockup, but it just seemed like the brakes were just not as efficient and just went a little bit deep there. And like you said, it's a tough corner. You've been on the gas for so long to really pick your braking point is difficult, and you got to make sure you have the right angle. But luckily, not into the sand and only loses that one position.
No harm, no foul. Really easy to lose your focus too, especially when you're in front. You know, no one to really look at. All of a sudden, you got to hit your braking marker. You know, a minute after your last one. It's definitely a unique situation.
See, Josh Doty just made his way around to Andy Malinowski. We saw him behind coming into the Mulsanne, and actually, just when we turned away, that's what happened. So Malinowski going a little bit wide. Josh Doty saying, "Thank you, I'll take that place very much."
Good thing right there. We saw that happen to Keith Williams.
I didn't know.
Really easy to get 4 tires in the gravel and get the car yanked off to the side. So good job not to lose it there.
Bryce Anderson still there sitting in second. Unfortunately, has lost some more time, and actually hasn't been threatened by Neri too much in recent laps. However, right now Neri is less than a second to him, so I think maybe something may have happened to Bryce Anderson, slow him down a little bit on this lap. Potentially traffic, such as catching at this time, not the best time to catch up.
Yeah, you think with all that straight there, you know, it's just why do you got to catch him here? But Don McCloy as well, much better time that traffic. You can catch him from Neri also. He was a lot farther behind, but he's starting to make some moves here.
Oh, Bryce Anderson flashing,
again,
really
just-
wanting to get by there, but
Oh,
has
my
to
goodness.
wait.
Absolutely nothing he can do. I'm not sure who that is that he caught. Not going to be fun for Bryce Anderson there.
See, that's Rick Hughes there in the Pennzoil BMW, and now all 3 drivers have made their way by. Of course, he has the right to the racing surface. He doesn't have to just pull off the track and let anybody by. So, not that he did anything wrong there. It's just bad luck for Bryce Anderson. You can see how much he's lost to those guys behind.
Yep. There's 2 sides to every story. You know, you get to be the bully in the faster car, but unfortunately, you get in the receiving end as well. Bryce Anderson there, learning his lesson the hard way. But no overtakes here, and they're all going to catch up with Slipstream anyways, which I think was kind of inevitable.
Pretty interesting, though, to see Paul Skip there is 10 seconds back from Don McCloy. I don't think we've seen Paul in any sort of big incidents or have damage on that car, but multiple laps here where he's been a second off of McCloy ahead, and these 3 here for 3rd place are definitely getting competitive.
Yeah, you can see Paul Skip losing about a second or 2 per lap those last few laps. His last lap of 3:26 compared to the 24s and 25s that McCloy and Neri were running. But well in the mixer of traffic now, so that will definitely be a factor from here on out, as we already saw with Bryce Anderson.
It looks like Bryce Anderson has caught up a little bit. Oh, and speaking of gaps, looking at Adrian Garcia-Vigil here, he has now made his way right to the back of Paul Boyle. Paul Boyle was starting to pull away from that entire field, and now all of a sudden, they're right next to each other on track.
Paul Boyle's last lap of 43.8 to Garcia's 41.4. So doing the math in my head, it's like 2.4 seconds, about 2.5 seconds. So got the help of Slipstream as well, but very, very quick lap.
Yeah, we didn't
I
see.
believe that's one of the fastest. It was the fastest previous lap out of anybody on track.
Yeah, we didn't see any big crashes by Paul Boyle or anything. Car looks clean, but maybe had some slowdown from some traffic or something, because yeah, you can see there the gap stayed almost exactly equal for 4 laps in a row, and then immediately gets cut down on lap 8. So, and Bryce Anderson ahead, second place. You see him dropping down the order. What happened in here?
The lock off, perhaps.
Oh,
Just
those
hit that
curbs.
curb and unsettled the car.
Neri
And- ooh,
narrowly
Neri.
avoids that.
Very good avoidance by Neri there.
Luckily, no big damage there for Anderson, but the guy who was in second place has now dropped down to 4th and 3.5 seconds off McCloy. So those guys ahead have the chance of really pulling away from him, and it's good news for Paul Skip, who's instead of that 10-second gap ahead, now he's looking at under 5 seconds.
Bryce has the pace to catch up, but it's not going to help him that McCloy and Neri can now work together to try and pull a little bit of a gap, at least until pit stops, which must be coming up pretty soon. I'd
They're
imagine
happening
here.
right now. Paul Boyle, the leader, coming into the pits.
There you go, speak of the devil. Paul Boyle, Richard Curry, Newbie, Foreman, Malinowski, Real, Das Weiss, Keith Williams, all into the pits. And I'm sure there'll be more.
Yeah, both LMP2 and GT3 class all coming in. We've got both of our leaders. A couple guys still staying out to take it another lap.
Kingsbury is one of those guys staying out. Kevin Bergquist staying out. A little overcut here. Looks like Hughes and Barnett also in. So we see Keith Roycroft as well.
So I don't
Looks
know.
like all the top 3 or 4 of the LMP2s as well. See if anyone else saved enough fuel.
Yeah, so far we
imagine
haven't seen an LMP2
Terrell-
go through without going to the pits, it looks like.
John Kelly still at the pit. I wonder if Nick Terrell might stay out. He obviously had the incident earlier. But I believe he towed, so you might only get an extra lap or 2.
So it was down pretty close between these two, but as a result of the pit stop for Paul Boyle, Adrian Garciufihill has inherited the lead, and we'll see what he's able to do in this clean air. Surely he only has another lap of fuel, so this will be his chance to try to get an overcut. And the cold tires are difficult, the worn tires are difficult. I would think that in general the undercut would be a little more effective, but if he thinks he had the extra pace, then this could be a winning strategy for him.
I might hedge my bets on the overcut. Or, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Maybe the longer straight, the heavy fuel tank won't actually matter as much. So maybe I actually had that backwards. I'm gonna find out one way or another, though. They're right on each other, so this would be a really good comparison on the overcut versus the undercut.
And speaking of right on each other, Christopher Craig right behind these two teammates. Aaron Clabaugh made his way around to Nicholas Paletti on that straight down there, and Christopher Craig has used that draft to put himself right in that conversation. Currently 4th, 5th, 6th on the track, and Christopher Craig himself, again, in that B class, highest running driver in the B class. Goes right, goes left. Not really a way to make your way around the outside here. He's trying to fill up the mirrors a little bit, but he's going to have to back out of that. Come into Indianapolis and try to fight another day here.
Craig, one of the drivers that stayed out in GT3 as well. So he's on a little bit different strategy, along with Paletti and Clabaugh.
Yeah,
Those squad guys
interestingly,
split
we
up
had a lot of
strategy little
the
bit.
top drivers there for GT3 sticking it out all the way back to Bergquist, I believe, haven't pit yet.
Looks like really only like the middle third pitted. You either up front and stayed out, and the back stayed out. Everyone else came into the pits. LMP is all in. So we're going to see Leonardo Elijah, one of those drivers in P12 right now, that also stayed out. And I believe that's going to be our top 9. It's going to have to come in unless they have solar panels on those things or something.
If anyone were able to do it, it'd be Paletti. That would be the only person that have that capability. So if he comes into the pits here, then we know it's time, and as he does. So
Yeah.
all 3 nose to tail, hoping that the guy in front of them goes quickly. Although you can pass on the pit entry, it is a racing surface.
We've seen it before. Everyone in nice and safe as well. So Doty, Kingsbury, Bergquist also going to come on in. Jeremy Barber likely to join them soon as well.
Nick Terrell, I would imagine, would be pitting soon. He obviously he towed on that first lap. And we'll have to
Patrick
see.
Ripley only 1 second off. Patrick had the incident earlier. as long as he doesn't have to stop in extra time, he's actually right in the fight.
Yeah,
It's
that's a
gonna be
good
really
call
hard
on
to
that.
tell.
Just
That
quite wide there.
might be slow down. Not sure. I think it kind of depends on how wide you go. But yeah, really interesting to see.
See,
But I imagine Patrick will have to play it really conservative here to have a shot in making it in field.
and we just watched Paul Boyle's car go streaming by there. What was only a few tenths coming into that pit window last lap is now a 3.5 second gap that Paul Boyle has pulled ahead of Garcia Vigil. So Adrian certainly hoping that later in this race the 1 lap younger tires on either this next stint or potentially the stint after can benefit him, because unfortunately that undercut has protected Paul Boyle's first place.
There. I think the cold tires and heavy fuel, you're spending so much time in a straight line, maxed out in 6th gear, doesn't really have the opportunity to slow you down. But again, like we were saying, a little extra fuel saving could all come into play at the end.
You can see there the speeds that they're getting on this back straight, over 270 kilometers an hour, still rising, gonna hit maybe that 280 mark. It's gonna be probably about close to where they're topping out. So you can see, you know, we're only to that first chicane, and this is kind of already where they're stopping as far as the gearing. So that's where that draft is really coming into effect and helping these drivers catch up to some guys ahead of them.
McAllister in that Ford, one of the fastest top speeds out on track right now. So just like we were saying earlier, that Ford, absolute missile.
See Steven Shepard here. He first race in a little bit has missed the last number of races, but he's got driver right in front of him, Dan Coleman, trying to make up the position. And on the race, Steven Shepard down to I think he had an incident last lap or so, and trying to recover from that. Luckily, he's got a clean car there.
Absolutely, Steve SimStation machine back in action, which is always good. So he can make some moves here on Dan Coleman.
Looks like he probably got a better exit through there, but I don't know how the BMW stacks up to the Porsche on top speed.
Just trying to find out. Well, not necessarily. He's going to have that slipstream.
It's a little far back. It looks he's continuing to fall away.
Got an issue there. He certainly looked close enough to get some sort of slipstream.
Yeah, we see Patrick Ripley. Yep, making his way through some traffic. That's actually a Vigil there, trying his best to catch up to Paul Boyle. You can see even in just that corner, despite playing nice with each other, lost 4 or 5 tenths to Paul Boyle ahead.
Yeah, Vigil definitely would have been wishing that was another half second later, if only. But fortunately, that's just how multi-class racing goes. Same could happen to Paul Boyle. There's Patrick Ripley now. 3 seconds behind Terry Coffey Jr. So Terry getting a little bit of time back. Of course, Terry has fresher tires.
And of course, we're getting to that point where a lot of lapping is happening. So any sort of sector or lap time can definitely be non-representative, as maybe they just came on traffic at the wrong time. And Patrick Ripley definitely makes his way around our leader Paul Boyle there in yet another new paint that we're seeing there. But BMW is certainly no stranger to Paul Boyle.
Patrick Ripley, you can really see him working the wheel there too. He is absolutely driving the wheels off this thing. No holds barred. Doing anything he can to get some time back on Terry Calgar after his early incident. At the very least, try and subsidize that second position.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like that Patrick coming out of the pits there has kind of lit a fire under Terry ahead, as Terry has actually started to pull away over the last little bit. We saw it when it was about 2 seconds last lap or lap before, and it's now a 4-second gap. Certainly not close enough to really be getting much of an advantage from that slipstream.
Yeah, he's definitely out of slipstream range now. Also makes it difficult. I believe the gearing here on the P2s is a lot more limited as well, so a lot harder to get overspeed. There's only so much you can actually get.
We have Dustin Dos Weiss making his way around Andy Malinowski here. Both these guys in the B class. Looks like Malinowski, you can see some tire tracks there. I think Malinowski may have gone wide, and Indianapolis and ended up
Just
losing
pulled
that
back
spot.
up.
And
That's why it's the 0-1 car.
speaking of incidents, Keith Williams potentially having a wreck here. Let's see, we're coming into the final chicanes here, I think. Just a little bit. What do you think? You know, was it the curb? Do you think that unsettled him there?
Yeah, it didn't really look like anything crazy happened. It seemed like he was driving it pretty smooth. I think it must have just been that curb and, just gripped up in the wrong place at the wrong time. No
Oh,
damage
Patrick
and-
Ripley. That's what as we see
Speaking of being
live. And
sideways.
Molzon goes a little bit deep, and maybe him working the wheel has made those tires a little bit too hot.
Yeah, he had to work a little bit harder than he would have perhaps wanted to there. Still second place, 10-second gap to Neary behind. But that is not helping his comeback efforts.
This is Bryce Anderson here, using some traffic, making his way around Don McCloy, coming down that long straight. Maybe getting a little bit of a draft from Anjaneri ahead, but again, we saw that incident earlier from Anderson, and he's starting to recover from that a little bit.
Happy to see them battling in his mirrors as well. See Patrick Ripley back up and going. About 8 seconds now to Terry Calgary.
Post-incident, Keith Williams is certainly not out of the weeds. He's got a guy right in front of him, Kevin Berquist, like I said earlier, new name to the league, and definitely racing close down this Molzon. Looks like Keith Williams not intent on trying to make a move. We'll see if he decides on going one late. Not just going to stick behind.
Yep, working with Kevin Berquist there, going with the smarter not harder approach.
A little wide for Berquist, and yeah,
And
keep.
yeah, he's not gonna have a choice now. He's gonna have to try and make the overtake.
And that's another strategy as well. You stay behind close, but you take the corner nice and easy. And Berquist, eager to defend the position, tries to maximize his braking as much as possible. Brake as late as he can, and just slightly too late. Not much. Not to lose a bunch of time, but Keith Williams able to take advantage of that, and we'll see if he's able to pull away now and try to recover from that early spin.
He's gonna have Rick Hughes licking his lips as well, as he sees two cars in front of him now. Lose a bunch of time.
Let's see Rick
We're
Hughes
a
there.
little bit wide. Keeps her on track.
And that new livery that we got, the Pennzoil, one of many drivers who is in a new livery, or at least a new car. So a lot to learn here. A lot of 43 cars to try to remember here, and I don't know if really anybody's in the same one.
Looks like Mark Dillon Jr. has been in the pits for a while now. I haven't really caught up on that. Unfortunately, looks like his night is going to be done.
Oh, something may have happened with Dana Real here as well. One of the top drivers in the B class already was getting loose there.
And saves the back end from getting hit, but I think that toe link is been removed.
You think that was the case of the classic Porsche curse that we've seen over the last season? Issues with high-speed corners and the car just snapping?
Could be, but I just feel like someone off on the left-hand side there. We have seen just a lot of cars in general spin there, though, so it's hard to really tell if it's the Porsche curse.
It's Brad
or
McCombs here.
Le Mans curse. Brad McCombs was having a really good race. It's a shame.
Oh, that is a
Oh.
big wreck.
Yeah.
Car just
Just looked
seemed-
straight off to the side, but yeah, that was a lot worse than it first appeared. Puts it in the wall again, trying to get turned around.
car just seemed to
Probably more
randomly
damage
snap
anyway.
there. It's a very interesting incident. I don't think we've seen any wrecks there so far this race.
The students, at least sure of the track, they get going back on track. Definitely don't want to tow. Don't want to tow if you don't have to. Bringing the gap back, it was 8 seconds. Now about 6.5.
And it's unfortunately increasing for Ripley. You see on the last lap, 2 seconds faster for Terry Calgary Jr. So he's safe from Anjaneri behind, which is the good news. The bad news is that Terry continues to pull away. So, I mean, we saw some strong races for Terry last year. A couple races where some incidents happened that were unfortunate. It's, speaking of LMP2 class, Bryce Anderson making his way around Anjaneri. Looks like Neri just got a little bit loose coming out of our Indianapolis there, and great move for Anderson to keep that place and make it stick.
Absolutely, Bryce Anderson taking advantage of everyone's mistakes. You gotta be able to do that. Want to make passes. Patrick Ripley here.
And Engineering there, currently in the B class. Man, it looks like the rear of that car is just a little bit loose. All these fast corners here in the Porsche curves, just a very quick driver there. Patrick Ripley, he knows exactly how to put it on the limit. But Engineering there in B class, so he's not currently competing with the guys around him on the season as a whole. But again, if in the next 2 races he has a good qualifying, then that could be where he's at. So currently, pretty good gap to Keith Roycroft behind, but he may end up being with these guys at the end of the season.
That chase cam makes the P2s look so smooth, and you get that cockpit view, and you can just see the steering wheel working. That's with power steering to help out as well.
You can see Christopher Craig there. Now he's up 5 positions from where he'd started, and actually has Aaron Claybaugh in front. Aaron Claybaugh, that early incident, he dropped 6 positions or so, and hasn't fallen more, but I'm actually surprised to not see him having recovered some of those. Obviously had a good qualifying performance, coming in 2nd place. It just barely snuck under Paul Boyle, but yeah, Paul Boyle's looking very strong out front. Just put in a 344.6, which was actually 2 seconds slower than Garcia behind.
Yeah, Christopher Craig doing a really good job of that. Hold on to that P7 in the amateur division. Of course, if he makes it to the pro division, those points will carry over with him. But if he just stays in the amateur, it'll be a really, really good start to the season. Dustin Dos Spice, the 2nd for the amateurs, as well as James Kingsbury.
Yeah, not a shocker to see Christopher Craig doing well there. Has always been a guy who's really strong at race pace, because he's just one of the most consistent and clean drivers you're going to have out there. So, especially in a race like Le Mans, where you've got some difficult corners, some survival is definitely required. It suits his strengths. And Dustin Dos Spice, having one of his best performances, had a couple races last season where he had some good pace. I believe Spa was a really strong one, except for the fact that he had, I think he was involved in a crash or had a drive-through or something, and still fought back to gain a lot of positions. And then, James Kingsbury, a guy who was on the podium at least a couple times last season, I remember, as Bryce Anderson, Patrick Ripley had an incident here. Another incident into the Mulsanne. Yes, it looks like it is. Had to totally bail out of that, as he could tell he was not going to be able to brake in time. And it's just going to heat up and degrade those tires even more. Bryce Anderson slips on through to regain that 2nd place position that he lost in that corner a few laps ago.
Actually, it looks like he at least stayed in Bryce's slipstream. Bryce's a really fast driver, so definitely someone he can work with. But Patrick really making it hard on himself now. As we see now, Neary and Don McCloy. Patrick gets loose again there. Just getting on the power of those hot tires, I'm sure, not helping anything.
Yeah, this battle here for 2nd place is helping Terry Cowger, but it's really kicking off. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, each one of those guys all less than a second to each other.
They get locked into a nice draft train now, or they're going to try and work together as a big pack of 4. I'm just not sure if they really have the answer for Bryce Anderson. It just kind of depends on see if Patrick can get away from his path.
Yeah, I mean, Anderson was, of course, up there in 2nd before, and had gotten the couple guys behind him, which were Neri and Patrick Ripley has to avoid contact there with the GT3 car coming into that slow chicane. Did he? What?
107 at Atticus Middleton. I'm not sure. And I wonder if he locked up and had to take an unsafe pit entry. He might be getting himself a penalty.
Yeah, that was definitely not a planned pit stop, but I think in that avoidance, let's see, I think this replay catches it. Nope, that's the wrong thing there.
I do have it. He did just lock up and just had to take the pit entry road. Unfortunately, he's definitely going to have a slam dunk unsafe entry penalty.
That's no way to go, and hate to see it. A guy who's, not planning on being here for the entire season, competition-wise, but really wanted to see him fight up here at the front. We had such a great battle going for 2nd, and yeah, that penalty is definitely taking him out of the race.
I don't know. Someone tells me that will not be the last we see of Mr. Patrick Ripley.
Well, I know we'll still see some quick laps from him for sure. I guess any of these guys has a big incident, big wreck, or a similar penalty. It's not that hard to get an unsafe pit entry into this very weird, twisty pit entry here at Le Mans, and one that's actually kind of hard to judge coming into it.
Yeah, I think the first time we ran it was at night, and I think we had, I don't think I'd be wrong in saying at least 15 unsafe pit entries, so.
Neri pulling out a little bit early, but it looks like he may have enough slingshots come down to the Mulsanne. They make the kink now. Bryce Anderson's still a little bit ahead and has that preferred inside line. We'll see how this shakes out. Don McCloy not really sure who to follow back there.
Anderson loves to flash those headlights. Sticks up the inside.
Anderson, aggressive defense there, really pushing Neri all the way out to the edge and holds that position. And now McCloy's all over the back of Neri.
Yeah, Neri a little bit loose on the exit. McCloy taking advantage of that. Just going to give him a push here. Really good job by Bryce Anderson to take up all that space and try and get a little bit of a gap here.
See if McCloy decides to try to make a move here into Minneapolis. I don't think you really can. I don't think we've seen anybody make a pass into that corner. You see McCloy wisely backs off there. That's not a place that you want to have an incident. Oh, and both of them get a little bit loose. Neri a little bit more so, but both lose time to Bryce Anderson ahead.
Showing off for the cameras there. Really good save by both of them. Wonder if they just kind of, Don McCloy just kind of followed them there. Just pushing really hard.
Yeah, we're really seeing these LMP2s a lot looser than the GT3s. The GT3s, we've seen a couple maybe interesting snaps, but in general, it's not nothing that's too aggressive as far as the driving style. We saw, on board Paul Boyle earlier. Steven Shepard, I don't know if he was just going off track there to let him by. Now, he definitely has some damage to that car.
Yeah, Steven Shepard, just riding the wall here. Trying to do his best to get everyone's way. Don't want to tow if you don't have to. It looks like he'll keep it on track.
Coming into Indianapolis, talked about how dangerous for the corner it is. That bump just really unsettles the car sometimes if you hit it wrong.
Oh, and there's actually, that tire wall is new actually. Normally, that's what I was talking about. Didn't used to be there. You just go straight into towing into the pits, but having trouble getting that thing back. But driving it back slowly, still fast and towing.
Neri getting a little. And he loses the spot to McCloy. Got dangerously close to Bryce Anderson there into the braking zone. Had to ditch his effort, and McCloy is able to sail right on by as Neri tries to rejoin.
Great job to save that. Looks like he's still within slipstream range.
Watch this pass again as Don McCloy reacts, takes the inside, says, "I'll take that," and unfortunately, Neri just has to accept his fate on that.
Good job by McCloy, too. Really easy to push wide going over that crest. The car gets really light. Really easy to understeer off into the side of Neri's car there. But was able to make the pass cleanly, so really good job.
Highlighted Dan Coleman here earlier for making up a good number of spots, and he's now up 8 spots for the class. He's got that pretty large gap to Brad McCombs ahead, but running well, and Leonardo Elijah right behind him is up 6 positions as well.
Daniel Burnett, P16, been pretty quiet today. He is the hard charger of the night so far, up 9 spots in the starting spot on the grid. Nice and steady. I guess no news is good news sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's got some positions he's able to get ahead of him. You can see that's Kevin Bergquist ahead of him by less than a second, and then still just 3 seconds to Keith Williams in front of that.
Yeah, doing a really good job. We've seen how consistent Keith Williams and Bergquist, had one small little moment. Other than that, been really consistent. James Kingsbury as well, really consistent up there. I believe the lead Mercedes driver as well. A lot of BMWs and Ferraris, CP. You thinking there's something to that?
I mean, they're consistently the most reliable and safe driving cars. You definitely can get some pace out of some of the others, but These seem to be the safest cars, and Le Mans is definitely one where a track where I would say that's a paramount quality to have in a car is safety and reliability.
Absolutely. Looks like the top 11 has 5 Ferraris, 6 BMWs as well. First Mercedes down 12th, Ford's 17th, in the first Porsche not until 19th position. We talked about the Porsche curse earlier. Haven't seen too many Porsches flinging around the corners or anything.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are repping it regardless. It's a difficult car to drive, but yeah, I've seen a couple guys in that Porsche already have some incidents. Daniel Real is one, for example. But with Gareth McAllister there in another car, difficult to drive the Ford, he just made his second pit. So, he made that pit early from the damage. We saw him have that incident, but now it really makes you wonder, is he in the pit window? 43 minutes to go? That sounds like that might be kind of tough. That may have been one lap too early. Not that he chose when to crash, but just his mandatory stop that he had to do earlier.
Way it goes.
Yeah.
And it looks like the same thing. Brad McCombs, 2 laps into this stint, pitted 2 laps before Gareth. So Brad's another one that may be on pretty tough strategy, unfortunately for him. Malinowski as well, a little early to stop. Angel Jarena, earlier incidents. So we'll see if some of these guys can try and pull back at least one of those extra stops that they have. See Aaron Kleeball holding on P6. He's been kind of hanging there with plenty for most of this race, it seems, at least as of recently. You see the second times they're really, really close.
Yeah, these two guys have been very close to each other, two teammates.
Definitely an incentive to work together here. We got a pretty decent gap to Curry ahead and Christopher Craig behind.
Yeah, the top runners for the GT3 field right now have all really started to pull a decent gap, 4 seconds plus for all of the top 5, and so this maybe not so much a battle right now, maybe a little bit of teamwork, but this duo here of Kleibon and Paletti are the 2 closest in this top 5 or 6 drivers.
Got as well by Nick Terrell in the Mystery Machine P217, pulled back up to 9th. Obviously not the start he wanted, but considering he spent most of the first 10 minutes on the tow truck, good job to try and work his way back towards the middle of the field at least. Yeah,
and you never know. Of course, there are drop weeks, but you never know what's going to happen in the future races. So, even if he may be able to make enough races that all of these races can count. So he's got to think about the future here. Not the best start, I'm sure he would. We didn't really get to see whatever incident happened there right at the very beginning, but it's still a good idea to stick it out, stay in, and he's taken advantage of some incidents from some guys behind. And if he had just left, he would have at least been 4 positions lower than he is.
Absolutely. Just because you have the drop weeks doesn't mean you want to use them all. A lot of these guys don't have a choice. Paul Boyle still 4-second gap. He's been kind of hanging around there all race, running very similar lap times to Adrian Garcia, running 3:42s.
Similarly, we got Daniel Barnett making a pass on Kevin Berquist. We saw Kevin Berquist just down the road from him. Looks like Berquist went a little bit wide there in the Mulsanne. Nick Terrell just, as previously mentioned, right between the two. And Barnett just a little bit better of a drive, and Berquist has to just slot in behind.
Daniel Barnett adding to his hard charger tally. He's now up 11 spots. Yeah,
that's a very impressive feat. Again, this is a large field, so there's a lot of competition here. That's the important thing to mention is it's not a large field and it's totally spread out in skill. Like this is very close, and there's a reason that we're still having close battles throughout this whole race.
Yeah, and this is not like Paul Boyle starting last for fun or anything. Like these are, like you're saying, legitimate overtakes as well. Really good consistency, really good pace.
Bryce Anderson coming here into the Ford chicanes. Already looked like the car is a little bit loose there and just clobbers the curb a little bit too much. loses second and third, unfortunately, for the second time, makes his way back down to fourth place.
You got to be really careful too on those curves, getting floor damage. I believe in one of our Le Mans 24-hour attempts, we put 3 engines in the car, doing something like that. So luckily gets away with it. But yeah, digging up the floor of that car, not going to be healthy in the long term. Luckily, only 35 minutes to get that motor to the end.
Yeah,
Hopefully not too much damage.
I saw a couple examples during that practice session leading up to this, especially the LMP2s. It's no shocker that the LMP2s handle curbs worse than the, at least sort of road body GT3 cars. But I saw some clobbering of the curbs there in those final chicanes by the LMP2s, and there was some airborne time.
Even if the motor doesn't go, the splitter might go, the diffuser might go, suspension. So you definitely want to avoid those at all costs. Even if you can hang on to it, it's still not fast, as we see Malinowski here getting a good run on Leonardo Elijah. So I believe he's coming back from the incident at the start of the race too. So good job up in 20th.
Yeah, Malinowski was one of the top runners for the B group for a little bit of that start of the race. Must have run into an incident, and he's got Leonardo Elijah just ahead of Leonardo Elijah. If we had actually done the A and B split last season when we ran a little bit of a mock, I believe that he would have been the B champion. So, if that just gives you kind of an idea of, probably looking at how split the field, that Leonardo Elijah there would be the guy that we need to keep an eye on for this season. He would have been the hypothetical B class champion last season, and he may be able to repeat that performance, but for real this season.
Absolutely. And still 35 minutes in this race, so both those guys, plenty of time to make up positions on track, as well in the pits as well. As it looks like Nick Terrell making a pass on John Kelly into the pits, it looks like, actually.
I think we're coming up to that pit zone. Not a ton of close battles. I think right now would be a good time to take a little bit of a break. So we will see you guys back in just a few minutes. And we're back from a short little break. Looks like we had a couple incidents here while we were gone. Zach, if you want to take a look at what happened to Bryce Anderson here and let us know what you think happened. So he's coming into the pits.
You get
Ah,
Oh, that might be unsafe entry as well. Or maybe that just going a little too far over the line. Interesting. See if you get the penalty for that. Either way, it's going to be slow without it.
now obviously that there will earn you a couple incident points, and since you're able to check on it for us, what are we looking as far as incident point? The limit. First off, the bonus points have been increased, so you get more points for being a safe driver, but also that drive-through limit has decreased, I think, down to 20 incidents. So I know this track's not known for getting many off tracks, but what are we looking at here? Is anyone still at 0?
Christopher Newby, Paul Boyle, Dan Coleman, Nick Floody, Aaron Claybaugh, Richard Curry, Terry Calger, Christopher Craig, and Joshua Doty all at 0. With, looks like a few more people at 1. Atticus Middleton, the leader right now at 15. Stephen Shepard, 14. A few people creeping close, but most people hanging between 5 or 10, looks like.
Yeah,
It helps that the track has a lot of straight, but
a little bit
Luckily
deep
the-
there for Paul Boyle as we're on board. Yeah.
luckily the pit lane too, not the worst one to serve. It could be the endurance pits at Spa or something like that. But it doesn't speed you up at all. Serving drive through is Terry Calgary, McCloyd, Skip, Neary, Roy Kropp, Goubet, all in the pits. Ding, Ripley, DeCash. Excuse me, Ding, Ripley, and DeCash have been in the pits for a while. So damage. As Dan Coleman also looks like one of the first GT3s to make his second stop.
See there displayed on the left the lap that the drivers came in on their pit stop. So like I said, now we've got all the top 6 for LMP2 coming into the pits. Looks like Bryce Anderson is able to, oh well, he'd pit the last lap, of course, my bad. But Nick Terrell there was on a little bit of a different strategy just because he had to pit lap 1. But for the most part, it is interesting because last season I think a through line that we saw was that the GT3s often would have very similar strategy across the field, whether we're talking about pro or AM, and the LMP2s were all over the place with what they were doing with tires, with how much they were fueling. But for this race, it's been pretty standard. I don't know if we'll see something interesting for that final splash and dash though, because the tire decision will be a tough one.
Yeah, it looks like at least for the LMP is 28 minutes. Everyone's going to make it to the end. Only person out there, Nick Terrell, 9 laps into his stint, and Mark Dillon Jr. on track 5 laps. So both of them will need to pit again. GT3 still, those guys get to pit, obviously, with the 75% fuel tanks. Their second stint will be a lot longer than the first. But like we were saying earlier, with, I don't know, it's going to be hard to tell exactly when they will have to pit. But with only, we'll say 20-ish minutes, will some of these guys decide to take tires or not? Only having to splash fuel. Be a really interesting strategy call, especially some of the top guys here. McDonald, Boyle, Plutty, Garcia.
You see there in that sector 1, Dale Barnett was almost 7 seconds faster. It makes me think that there must have been because we didn't see any crashes or off track by Keith Williams there. I think he probably went too wide there in Tertre Rouge and got himself a slowdown. So now Barnett, who as he mentioned has already made up spots on this race, is trying to make up another one. He has to lift a little bit off the throttle, but look how much of a run he's got going down to Indianapolis. He's going to keep the position here. Yeah, easily takes that. Wow, that was a fantastic overtake there. I think he was kind of surprised at how much more of a drive out of that corner he had than Keith Williams there behind him.
Looks like Engineering now. Unfortunately, gets stuck behind both of them, but makes a really good move to make the pass. Paul Boyle, the race leader, looks like he did take tires, but he's been in the pits for a minute now. And I'm wondering what's going on with Paul Boyle.
That is not something you want to hear.
Yeah, 1 minute and 11 seconds pit stop for Paul Boyle. I wonder if he maybe had take required repairs but without a meatball? I mean, I have had that happen before. I'm not sure what triggers it, but I believe it's possible sometimes if you get some floor damage, they will make you repair without meatballing you or something weird.
I mean,
Very
another
interesting to
option is
see.
potentially some sort of penalty, speeding into the pits, or an unsafe pit entry of some kind.
Yeah, if you did get a 40-second penalty, that means his pit stop is 31 seconds,
Yeah,
which
spot
looking at
on.
everyone's last pit stop times are all 31, 32, 33, so it looks like Paul Boyle unfortunately getting slapped on the wrist by the race stewards there.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Really unfortunate.
don't know what it was from, but yeah, that was a
See if I
guy who
can
was
find
running
it.
confidently there in first, and it's going to be a struggle for him to get some good points out of this race now.
Yeah, really unfortunate. I just wanted to see, looks like pit entry, that first left-hander, he just did not make it, ran it through the bunker. And yeah, unfortunately, driving through the sand is not the safest way to enter the pits. According to the rule book.
Maybe a fair
So
penalty.
really unfortunate. Yeah, Paul Boyle really could not complain about that one. And that is going to relinquish, excuse me, the race to Adrian Garcia, I believe, who has about a 6-second lead on Jeff McDonald.
Yeah, that's gonna be one that he's shaking his head about for the remainder of this race, because he had a really comfortable lead there in first. Wasn't unbelievably ahead. Still needed to be on his toes, but yeah, that's gonna be one that stings, and hopefully he can maybe have this be a drop race, or just be strong enough in the rest of his races that he won't even have to remember this happening.
I have the stats in front of me. I'm not sure if Garcia and McDonald are going for their first win of the week here. I don't want to say too early though, because I don't want to curse them. And speaking of Garcia here into the pits, that's where Paul Boyle was off. You can see those tire tracks. And down to the pit limiter.
Makes it
Nice
without
and
any
safe.
incident.
Really conservative on the pit entry, but you gotta do what you gotta do. As you see Aaron Claybaugh now, who McDonald in the pit lane as well. Is Claybaugh gonna join him? He is. It's like Craig and Doty back there. As you can see, those guys all coming in now, and it looks like those pit cycles have begun. 24 minutes. Wonder if some of these guys are gonna take tires.
And another interesting thing that I was kind of following there was that we saw Aaron Claybaugh, as well as there we Craig, Doty, Kingsbury, Berquist. We saw all those guys all pit on that same lap at the start on lap 10. But Nick Paletti, this driver here, he was with those guys on lap 10, but he pit one lap earlier than them and then decided to pit on lap 19 for that second stint. I mean, obviously not out of the pit window, but just an interesting strategy call. Went different from the guys that he was around, and we're interested to see if it pays off when we come out of this pit cycle here.
I can confirm there is going to be 4 tires on the car for Aaron Claybaugh. Or maybe not 4, but there is definitely tires of some sort. Doty into the pits now, Christopher Craig and Kingsbury as well. 25-second stop for Aaron Claybaugh.
Sam El-Sayed had a incident here. Let's see what happened. So that's a fantastic paint job he's got in the car. Hoping whatever the incident here doesn't mess it up too much.
And same thing as I forgot who it was earlier, but on that left-hand curve, is that Paul Skip there?
Yes, and Bryce Anderson as well.
Backwards and forwards and gets it back going.
Yeah, it just looked like one of those where just the steering happened a little bit too early in the whole sequence of events. Needed to
Yeah,
get it slowed down a little bit more.
yeah, that left-hand curve has caught a couple people out. I don't remember it really doing that much in the past, but maybe I've just not been paying attention. Maybe it's the one thing I've avoided. I haven't avoided a lot of damage, but maybe that one. As we see Nicholas Paletti here closing the gap on Aaron Claybaugh again, Doge Squad teammates.
Good draft here. Let's see if he actually tries to make the move, or if they will. They are not going to be working together. No bump drafting right now. He wants that position.
.22 minutes, so they're definitely goes out now a little bit more.
And he slots himself ahead to see if Claybaugh is able to get a little bit of a draft and try to make it a competition down into Mulsanne. They still got a ways to go. They're about to make their way through the kink right now.
Yeah, looks like he just gonna get right up on the bumper. Doesn't look like he's gonna make a move back here.
about as close as you can get there. Let's see the rear of Paletti's car there, directly looking into the grill of Claybaugh. Claybaugh backs out a little bit, coming to that Mulsanne braking zone though.
Brave of Claybaugh there to actually stick that close. One thing people probably don't realize is that it is really hard to see when you're tucked up that close, especially in the LMP2 cars. But making a push here to catch up to Richard Curry.
Yeah, absolutely true. I do think it's fair to say that if there were anybody on this track that he was most comfortable with, or knew exactly how he was going to drive, I think it would be his teammate Nick Paletti there, or his teammate Paul Boyle, who, based on the penalty, is now behind those two, despite being ahead by quite a lot before that pit stop.
And Paul Boyle now 11th overall in GT3, 10th in class, and the BMW dominance after those mistakes was quickly turned into a Ferrari 1-2 of Adrian Garcia and Jeff McDonald.
And Garcia's got himself a 7-second gap. We saw Garcia and McDonald, both guys battling each other at the start of this race, and looks like Garcia started to, despite being in the same cars, really started to pull out that gap.
Actually, Garcia running a nice, clean, consistent race. Fresh tires on the car helps as well. He should be good to go to the end here, barring any unforeseen events. I believe everyone just about looks good. Brad McCombs, I believe, will have to make an extra stop, as well as Andrew Malinowski, who was running really good, had some incidents, but pushes his way back to the field.
Steve Cubay there, just behind Keith Whitcroft. They traded positions a little bit wide, having to take a narrow entry into the Indianapolis there. Looks like he'll survive, but lose a little bit of ground. But these two drivers, Keith Whitcroft and Steve Cubay, trading positions down that back straight, and some traffic kind of got in the way of a battle there, unfortunately. But the interesting looking at the standings again, it's difficult to come up with an objective, in real life, bronze rated, silver rated, gold rated drivers in endurance. I mean, that's a governing body that decides it. It's based on finishing positions in championships. We don't exactly have something the size of the FIA, so I think we were hoping that the idea of qualifying pace was going to be a good indicator of splitting the classes. And I mean, look at that, it's absolutely done so, as we see in the GT3s. 11 of the top 12 are in that A class, and Christopher Craig, the only one who's put in a surprise entrance. And then looking at the LMP2, 4 of the top 5, with Neri sticking himself in the middle, are in A class. Oh, and we just saw back there, it looks like a little bit of a change of mind on coming into the pits, or maybe a spin. I don't know exactly what happened there.
And speaking of that class split as well, something we did not mention earlier is the top 55% getting 5 bonus points in qualifying for the first 3 races.
Yes, yeah, good point. And that's to even further disincentivize any sort of sandbagging, and of course always incentivize attendance at the start races. Speaking of which, he hasn't lost a ton of time, but we do see Paul Skip here had an incident. He's got Bryce Anderson behind him, and
Boyle in front. I wonder if he's just...
Oh!
And like I was saying, when he tucked up that close, hard to see. I think Paul Skip just caught him quicker than he thought, and Bryce Anderson just completely unsighted. All of a sudden, the car in front of you hits the brakes. Bryce probably could have saw him better. He probably would have seen it coming, but yeah, I think Paul Skip there just a little bit slower than he would have liked, and Bryce Anderson, no idea.
Yeah.
I don't think Bryce driving recklessly or anything like that. Just really unfortunate timing of events in the corner.
Yeah, definitely getting a little bit surprised at Paul Skip taking his car through the Dunlop chicane at GT3 speeds, but there's no way for Skip to get around at that point, so it's just one of those unfortunate incidents. Luckily not too bad a damage, as Brad McCombs makes his way around Josh Doty here on the straight after the Mulsanne hairpin.
Bryce Anderson's going to be looking at his spotter, wondering what might happen right there, but just the unfortunate timing of events there in multi-class racing, as we see Brad McCombs, who had that big incident earlier in the wall, all 4 tires off the ground, back at P8, and right on the tail of Christopher Craig.
Yeah, luckily the wreck came at a time where he was able to pit and still be in that strategy, I think.
Brad McCombs. Is
Oh no, he's still gonna have
going-
to pit again.
Yeah, he's on the 8th lap of his stint here, so I do not think. Yeah, he's gonna need to make this like 12, 13 laps. I think Brad McCombs is gonna be coming back in, so I think we jumped the gun on that, but still has a pretty decent gap. He should still stay within the top 15 overall, I believe, if my napkin math is correct. So still not the worst of runs considering how hard the incident was.
Yeah, it looks like he'd probably be coming out around 13th, just ahead, because Keith Williams has 30 seconds to Dustin Jost Weiss ahead, Keith being in that 14th place spot. So I think that's probably accurate. And then again, Gareth McAllister there in 6th place, a name we haven't mentioned in a little bit. I just I don't know if he's able to make it to the end.
He's also on an alternate strategy, but he pitted 2 laps later than Brad. Brad obviously staying out for 9 laps. I wish I would have paid more attention to the exact number of laps per stint.
Well, 10, because they've done 2 stops
10.
and the second one was on the 20th lap.
Yeah, so Brad's starting his 9th lap, so Brad can make it one more and pit. That would give
See,
Gareth McAllister another 2 laps after that. Yeah, just trying to
Yeah.
do the math in my head. I'm not sure that's going to quite make it, unfortunately.
yeah, the way I'm looking at it with McAllister right now is that's probably going to put him just 1 lap short. Oh, and Paul Skip and Bryce Anderson may have come together again, both of them crashing. Let's see here. Could be separate events. Paul loses it on his own. Just same place that we saw Brad McCombs a little bit later in the corner. But then at the same time, Bryce Anderson crashed in this one. I believe he toes with this incident here.
Oh.
Did he have damage from before?
Just not looking at a black box or something.
And we had a second incident for Paul Skip. Paul Skip maybe a little bit too confident in the car after that wreck. Oh, he's just wow. So that has really changed the standings for the LMP2 classes. Skip and Anderson have, if they haven't officially retired the car, they've effectively retired their cars.
Well, I'll just tell you what. Look who's creeping back in the picture now is both Nick Terrell and John Kelly.
Yeah,
Both those guys
absolutely.
In those earlier incidents. Yeah, we'll see if they can come back out front with the tow. I believe everyone can make it to the end. Both Kelly and Terrell, so they're really interested to see where that pans out.
Oh man, they're looking really squirrely on the gas there as they're behind Jeff McDonald, who is currently running second. Still has that 7-second gap to Garcia ahead, but 18 seconds to Claybaugh behind. So we've really seen these two, and Paul Boyle was up there before the penalty as well, but really seen these two of Garcia and McDonald pull away from the rest of the field as far as pace goes.
I challenge you after this race, CP, to find at least 5 minutes of footage where Neary and McCloy are not in the same shot together. Because I don't believe they've been separated by any more than 10 car lengths this entire race, it seems, at least.
And it's a little poetic too, because I really when I think on last season, I really grouped them together as both guys who the LMP2 was debuted last season, and I think both the guys started out a little bit slow and really started to put it on at the end of the season. I mean, there was a lot of races where, especially in the middle part of the race, either one of these guys was putting in the fastest laps of the entire field. So you knew that both these guys were really starting to improve in these cars, and I was excited to see how they would do coming into this season. Again, Neary just qualified outside of that A-B split, but McCloy is in the A class, and yeah, second, third is fantastic points for them, regardless of incidents happening around them. They, the Skip and Anderson, they were behind both these guys.
Neary here catching up to some traffic. So it's in a pretty decent
wide.
spot. A little scary.
That was our leader, Adrian Garcia Vigil, there as well. So absolutely doing the best he can to not lose any time. Although we're getting close to that 10 minutes to go mark, and it's starting to look pretty safe for Vihil as long as he doesn't have any big incidents. And Brad McCombs there, as we were talking about earlier, coming in for that pit stop. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on 2 laps from now. Yeah, it's unfortunately going to be short for Gareth McAllister, I believe.
It is official. Paul Skip and Bryce Anderson have put their car on the hauler. Atticus Middleton returning early as well. Looks like Sam Al Saeed down a few spots, but car out on track. Trying to make up a few positions as well. Stephen Shepard, Ryan Deaton got just some incidents, but chugging along. And looks like it's going to put Nick Terrell up in the 6th place. It's the top half of the field.
Yeah, and then speaking of which as well, against Steve Cubet, who I think he had not even put in a qualifying time until the very, very end. So I think maybe he had disqualified a few of his first attempts. So certainly qualified out of position, but up 9 spots still. He had to start dead last, and he's up in 4th. He has obviously a huge gap to Don McCloy ahead, so won't have the aspirations of being able to steal a podium, but I mean, 4th place points are 4th place points. Doesn't really matter.
I think those any day of the week, up 9 spots to Hard Charger and LMP class, and almost Hard Charger overall, despite being in a 13-car class. So really good job by him. Daniel Barnett up 10 spots as well here as we have 10 minutes to go. Garcia's lead about 7 seconds, and Terry Calgar up to about 12.5. Terry's had a kind of a quiet race today, which I'm sure he will not be disappointed in.
It's a vintage Terry race. So we saw a lot of that a couple seasons ago, final season of the only GT3s, and he had his fair share of quote-unquote boring races, and this is a bit of one for him as well. As you could tell he had some pace in the tank at times where the guy would get a little bit closer, start to threaten him. Don McCloy trying to fill up the mirrors of Neri, definitely not trying to make a move into these chicanes, but he's getting a little bit tired of following him all this time.
Yeah, luckily, he is in the spot where he could really pull out, make the pass any time in the slipstream here. Probably just gonna sit behind him. I'm not sure though. 8 minutes left. Maybe you can try and pull away in the second half of the lap, but these guys, like I said, just been glued to each other all race, so I don't think this is over yet at all.
Yeah, it's still really hot. I mean, it's been 90 minutes, and these guys are still battling it out. We're actually seeing quite a lot of battles still on track, and not only are these guys doing it right now, but we do have Richard Curry, Aaron Claybaugh, those guys around there in that 4th to 5th spot. Crossing the finish line now, you can see right on the tail of Nicholas Paletti. And then similarly, we also have a close battle down there at 18th with James Kingsbury, who is just now looking at, he's got Nick Terrell making his way through, but that's Andy Malinowski in front. These guys, a couple of the top runners for the B class right now. Obviously, currently 17th and 18th, but in a really large GT3 field, they're in the top, 5 or 6 for the B class.
Jason Craig still solidifying the 8th place, doing a really good job. Brad McCombs, just as predicted, out in 13th, so he has some time to make up as well.
Yeah, unfortunately 15 seconds. Yeah, it's pretty much just, he's going to be ahead of Gareth McAllister when McAllister has to come into the pits, but he just needs to keep it on track for the rest of the race now.
Yeah, Keith Williams also has that 20-second gap to Brad ahead, so he's really just trying to look and make sure he can keep Daniel Burnett behind him. He was battling for first earlier in the race and has pulled clear of those guys, so looking for these last 7 or so minutes to certify that Kingsbury's still here, right in the tail of Malinowski, as well as Richard Curry on Floody.
Curry,
he was with his teammate Aaron Claybaugh earlier, but he's not there to come to the rescue anymore.
Oh, Don McCloy, after tailing Neri for so long, finally makes his way around, and not in the easiest way, going on the inside of Indianapolis here. We just talked about how we did not really see many moves in there. What a pass, and really just gets it slowed down enough in that corner there. And Neri not able to quite make a move in the next corner.
Mercedes logo on the front of that thing too. Very interesting. And yeah, you can just see from the overhead shot just how many marbles and stuff there are. So any racing off the line is compound and difficult, but really nice move there.
And you may notice that Paletti is not there in front of Curry either, and coming in the Mulsanne. Curry on the outside, not the preferred spot to make the pass. Usually the inside's better, but he's got just enough of a nose ahead. Really brave send. Oh, and a collision. There's a collision.
I'm really surprised he got done track. It was a really good job by both drivers, to all things considered there. The outside move seems to be working pretty good. I feel like I've seen it a couple times get that straight to braking zone, but that was a really hard hit, it seemed like. Good job, man. Richard Curry is
a bit of an entrance there by the LMP2. I don't think he expected him on the inside there. As Aaron Claybaugh may have had an incident here.
That was Steve Coubet getting in the mixer.
See, this is just behind what we were watching there. Again, these
those right there as they banged and what in the world?
Let's check this again from a different view. It's almost like he money shifted, but it's in a sequential.
Yeah, you have downshift protection.
What in the world happened there?
Was it that he was on that curb again? I wonder if it bounced, and as the rear end lifted, the brake locked, landed on the locked up tire, perhaps? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've seen a GT3 car spin. I mean, that's exactly how I spin in like the NASCAR trucks when I money shift.
Yeah, I just wonder if it curb hopped and the ABS, just no wheels on the ground, just couldn't kick in correctly. And maybe he just caught that tire. That was really, really weird. As speaking of earlier, Gareth McAllister, unfortunately, we left too short.
Yeah, I mean, crashing is, there's never a good time to crash, but it's even worse when you crash just one lap too early to have made the strategy work.
Yeah, he's really going to be wondering what could have been. Luckily, though, he'll have the shortest of the splashes compared to anyone else. Looking to hopefully get out in front of Greg McCombs. We'll see. He should definitely make it out in front of Keith Williams as well, at least. So it shouldn't be any worse than 13th. He's at pit exit here, just in front of Dustin Das Weiss. Das Weiss is going to have a bet on his hands at the end of the race.
And Dos Weiss as well is also in second place for the B class right now, he's the second highest runner for the B class guys. So, but again, Christopher Craig being 5 spots ahead, that's 5 spots of position. And, it's not one spot between those two. So, I mean, this is a really important points haul for Christopher Craig today.
Yeah, of course, as stated, first 3 qualifyings count, so we could always go with the pro class, which would then help Dustin take the lead of AM, but you never know what's going to happen, so got to get all those points you can. Dos Weiss, really good race, and he's really earned it today, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's been a really good one for him. You can see up 4, but also like a pretty good qualifying position as well. Again, a really large GT3 field today, so any spot up there is quite impressive. And you can see there also that, I mean, it's not enough that I don't there must have been some sort of extenuating circumstance on the previous lap, but Garcia was over 2 seconds slower than Jeff McDonald. Now, I don't know if we have it looks like we're going to have 2 more laps to go, I believe. Yeah. So, I mean, technically at that rate, Jeff McDonald makes this a conversation. So I don't know if that was a one-time thing happening or if the heel really is starting to experience some problems.
Joshua Doty on tear as well from his incident earlier. He is right on the tail of Claybaugh for that top 5.
And Claybaugh trying to recover from that early, just really odd incident that we saw. Actually, we're coming up to that spot right now, but Doty's going to have to back out a little bit. And yeah, we're seeing a lot of those BMWs and Ferraris up at the front. The stability seems to be helping them a lot, although I don't know what we saw with Claybaugh's car last lap. We'll see. Looking fine that time, at least.
I think that curb there has more incident points than some of these drivers. It appears.
GT3 there. That's not for position.
Rick Hughes just getting out of the way.
Yes.
Rick was getting on the radio thanking him.
Nicholas Paletti, despite getting passed by Richard Curry a couple laps ago, still kept it competitive. Coming into that corner was about 3/10. Dropping back a little bit through these Porsche curves, but still has the chance of coming back and getting that third place spot. But as it is, he's sitting in fourth. Got a safe gap to Clayball behind in fifth.
Absolutely, and also a really good job by Keith Roycroft, kind of gone under the radar. He's up in the top 5 after, I wouldn't say a rough start, but just kind of hanging in there. I think he had a few incidents in front of him, had to slow down a little bit, but doing a really good job staying consistent, and it's paid off here with hopefully a top 5 finish.
It's very nice looking paint that he's got on that. Definitely have taken some inspiration from some of his paints for the ones that I've made.
Keith Roycroft, the president of Pony Express team painter, one of the go-to guys for that kind of stuff, and I'll tell you what, no matter what he does, it's always in style.
We can see there, fastest laps displayed there. Terry Kiger Jr., no surprise, fastest guy for the LMP2s. But to take it even further, only one other guy's even done a 21, and he's done a 21.5. So, I mean, he's just leagues faster than everybody today here at this track. And I know he's had some bad luck at Le Mans in the past, but he's had a few good races in a row now here. So maybe his fortune's turning here. But then you can see in that GTD class, fastest lap is coming from our second place runner, Jeff McDonald, with 33:41.2. And it's just such a competitive field going down. I mean, even all the way down to, Brad McCombs, Gareth McAllister, they've all done 31s. Nicholas Paletti makes his way around Richard Curry. Let's see this on the straight here. It is. Let's go to it live. Curry on the outside. He's made this work before. They had a little bit of a collision, but he was ahead by more than this coming into the Mulsanne, and Paletti's starting to inch ahead. They are so close. They are inches apart, not giving anybody any room.
I think they're trying to do a little NASCAR side draft or something. Probably trying to do anything they can at this point. Probably looking to hold that inside, but we have seen that outside line be successful.
Let's see. Inside's usually preferred. We saw it work for Curry before. Gets it slowed down. Nice job on the brakes. He takes the position.
Really close to the inside. And you have to remember, you can get a corner cut without hitting the bollards there. So
let's watch this overtake again here. Curry just not close. He's not ahead enough to really try to stick his nose in there and take that spot.
Must have been really close for Paletti in that corner cut, but this is all the track and then some. Might as well have paid for it. As he's going to hope he hits the inside again.
Oh no! And also this, Christopher Newby involved in a wreck earlier, and that is a shame.
Yeah, that right front, that point in the correct direction. Terry Kiger, what's going on with him?
Yeah, he won.
Oh, I didn't even catch the end of the race. I was just so busy staring at this battle here with Nick Paletti.
I apologize to Terry Kiger Jr. Terry Kiger Jr. Coming across the line with a win in race 1 of this season. And let's see, Adrian Garcia-Vigil. See how he's doing here in this. Coming through the last 3 corners. You can see Jeff McDonald just back there, but 4 seconds to go, or 4 seconds behind. Garcia's going to pull it across the line. A fantastic win here to start out the GT3 season. We saw him in the LMP2 last year, already starting out with a champion, or with a victory here.
And that's going to be Ferrari 1-2, and they're going to take 5 of the top 10 cars as well. And again, apologies to Terry. You made it look so easy. I forgot you won. You're just too far ahead, man.
Richard Curry really wants that 3rd place spot, but it looks like he's going to have to settle for 4th coming across the line. Nick Paletti in 3rd place, Richard Curry in 4th.
Epic battle. Good job by Paul Boyle to at least get a 7th place out of that 40-second penalty.
Josh Doty coming across the line. Aaron Claybod just behind him. Paul Boyle, as you said, finishing in 7th place. Still getting those points. Again, a penalty and still finishing there in 4th. And look at that final lap, putting in a 3:41.2, fastest lap of the race.
And you know, as a ZP, I'm going to say it. Now, of course, we don't know the exact penalty length. Assuming it's 40 seconds, his gap to the leader, 39.45.
Oh, man.
Now, obviously, with slipstream and that kind of stuff, you know, it's not perfect, but Paul Boyle is going to be looking at that, and assuming we have our penalty right, that one's going to eat him up a little bit. As we see Keith Williams on the line, he's had a really solid race. He's out of trouble. Daniel Burnett as well, right behind him, along with Kevin Bergquist. All three of those guys having a really solid night tonight, and good points to start off the season with.
Yeah, this was unfortunately so much action that I forgot to even catch Terry coming across the line. Of course, wasn't very close there for the for our former champion of 2 seasons ago, Terry Carger Jr. 9 seconds ahead of Don McCloy, finishing great in second place and engineering in third. But there's just so much action that we were catching even on this final lap, 100 minutes in.
Yeah, we had so many cars banging doors down that back straight. Just need like 10 sets of eyes as Kevin Bergquist comes along across the line, and I believe Chris Newby is the only one left who may be in the pits from his damage, and is that going to finish up?
That should be everybody who is across the line now. So what a fantastic race we had there. Action from start to finish, no question. A couple victory burnouts and drifts that we're getting here.
There you go, James Kingsbury, having some fun with it. And you know, Lamar, it can get boring when it gets spread out, but that one, I'll tell you what, ZP, had action everywhere start to finish. That was an awesome race. I'm really glad I got to be a part of that.
Let's see our race results here now that we've finished up. So looking at our LMP2 class race winner, Terry Carger Jr., absolutely. Oh, my bad. 1 sec. There we go. No shocker there. He led it from start to finish and had more pace than really anyone else was able to have. Terry Carger Jr. with a 9-second win over Don McCloy. Third place, Andrew Neri, top guy for the B class, at least as it stands. We'll see how next couple races go for this whole field. Steve Cubey coming in fourth, and Keith Brocraft in fifth. Nick Terrell recovers after the early incident to sixth place. John Kelly in seventh. Bryce Anderson and Paul Skip both not finishing this race, 8th and 9th. Mark Dillon Jr. 10th. Anthony Dring 11th. Patrick Ripley 12th. And Antoine DeCache 13th.
And taking a look at the GTD standings, Adrian Garcia, followed by Jeff McDonald, Nicholas Pletty, Richard Curry, Joshua Doty, Aaron Claybaugh, Paul Boyle. Christopher Craig comes across first of the amateurs, at least as of today. James Foreman, Gareth McAllister, Dustin Dos Weiss, P2 in the amateurs, Brad McCombs. Keith Williams finishes on the third podium spot in P13 for the amateur division, followed up by Daniel Burnett, Kevin Bergquist, Andrew Malinowski, James Kingsbury, Christopher Newby, Leonardo Elijah, and Angel Durana.
And then following those guys,
excuse me, just get it pulled up. Then we have Jeremy Barber, Eric Jacobs, Dan Coleman, Ryan Jeevan, Rick Hughes, Steven Shepard, Sam El Said, Atticus Melton, Daniel Real, Craig Willis, and Sasha Kempter, who I believe he did take the field, yes.
Well, that was a beyond exciting race, a wonderful start to this season. Interested to hear from our A and B class winners now. So if you want to, there's some people waiting in the booth right now. If you want to bring them in, we can see how they felt about their races.
We will go ahead to talk to our overall race winner, Terry Carger Jr. first. Hey Terry, how's it going? Do you have us in the booth here?
Yep, I got you.
Looks like you had a pretty dominating race there. In fact, so dominant that me and ZP did not even realize you crossed the line. You were just so far ahead. So sorry about that in advance.
That's all right.
Had really good speed here. Was this a track you're really comfortable with? Looks like you kept it out of trouble. What were your keys to victory in this one?
Yeah, you just hit it. Just stay out of trouble, which I was horrible at last season. I did a lot of was my own worst enemy. So I just concentrated on not being that tonight. And I surprisingly, I don't know where the speed came. I was surprised had that type of speed, to be honest. When we hit the Mulsanne straight, the start of lap two, I looked over. I'm like, 3 seconds already. What? It didn't seem right.
Absolutely, and did a really good job too of me and Zach were talking about staying out of that draft pack at the beginning. It can really get messy, as I'm sure you're well aware of, having the battle cars down the straight the entire time. Next week we take it to Daytona for a little nighttime racing. Track you have a lot of experience with. How do you think that's going to go for you?
I'll take a night like tonight, but with this type of racing, anything could happen. I think I had a couple close calls that were unintentional. It just turned into being close calls. Um, but yeah, I mean, anything can happen. I'm real comfortable at Daytona. It's one of my favorite tracks. So we'll hope for a another result like tonight.
Definitely the traffic too. I believe we had 44 cars, so that's
It,
definitely going to be something more to manage as well.
it felt
So
like it.
even tonight, it seemed like there's action all over the place. So
Yes.
congratulations on your win, and we will be looking forward to the next one. See
All
if you
right.
can do a little repeat.
I'm gonna try. Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
You too.
And if ZP, you want to talk to our other race winner here, Andrew Neary.
Andrew, get me in the booth here. Andrew, are you hearing us here?
Oh yeah, I got you.
Well, you had qualified just outside of that A class A B group, but made your way up 3 positions all the way into third. Obviously, we're battling Don McCloy. I mean, virtually that entire race. Zach had said he'd try to bet me if I could find really any screenshot of this race with you in it where Don wasn't. So, how was that race? And how did you deal with racing him for 100 minutes?
That was on my mind the entire time. Just seeing him in my mirror, and I think we were kind of back and forth. I really tried to catch him at the end, um, but I couldn't catch up to him.
You made up a lot of positions actually early. Even it didn't even really come that late in the race. So where did you find that success on this track to make up those positions early in the race and then maintain those positions?
I think something that helps me is I'm kind of consistent. I'm not super fast, but I'm consistent. And I was able to make a couple of passes on some mistakes of others. Was able to get in between, a couple of wrecks, not really wrecks, but some people getting loose, and I just split right between them and was able to hold it.
Now, obviously, last season, I know you were one of the drivers that had the most safety points, and it really seemed like chasing those safety points also, it's really vaulted your pace, and through over that last season, you improved really quickly, and so coming out the gates hot here today, what are you looking to take from this race into next week?
I'm looking to try to keep it consistent and kind of use my strategy from last season. And what's been helping me is chasing those safety points. I get to slow down a little bit and pay attention to what I'm doing. And I've been able to see I shave off a couple tenths of a second on some corners that I might not have been able to do before.
Yeah, it's absolutely something. I was talking to somebody else about it, how it wasn't maybe the initiative of the rule being put in place initially, but it seems to really help people get quick. And I think with a more difficult car to drive like the LMP2, it's certainly done wonders for you. So again, congrats on starting out the gate here with the 3rd place overall and first in the B class, although it wouldn't shock me to see you finish up the season in the A class over these next couple races.
Well, we'll see. My qualifying's not the greatest.
We are looking forward to it, and we hope you have a good night and good luck next week.
Yep, you too. Thanks.
And up next, we have unfortunately no Christopher Craig today. Does not have a mic for his interview, so we will talk to Adrian Garcia, your GT3 winner. Adrian, do you have us in the booth?
Hello there.
How was that? That was definitely an exciting race. couple penalties, spins, crashes, and you navigated your way safely to the front after a long 100 minutes. Talk us through that one.
Yeah, it was unexpected to be fair. Yeah, I was not very comfy coming into the race with the GT3. So I wanted to take it easy. So I took it easy at the start behind Paul, also with Jeff, and I was planning to stay there. I think if Paul didn't have the issue, I think he had an issue with the pit stop. He will probably have to take it because yeah, we're pretty even. But yeah, just keep my nose clean, which I failed to do last season with LMP2. So hopefully I can get some consistency. You know, pace seems good. So yeah, and then from there, I think the last half an hour I was just scared to drop it in some corner. Have a couple of close calls, but it went pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely weren't the only one to have some close calls. Another talking point me and Zach were talking about was fuel saving. Uh, did you have to really deal with that, or was it pretty straightforward?
Yeah, actually, on the first stint, I thought I was gonna pit, but I managed to save some fuel behind Paul. So my overlay was saying like, nah, I could do one more lap, and now I was struggling with the fuel coming into the pit stop, just running out of it. So that's why I lost, I think, like a couple of seconds with him. And so then on the next stint, I managed a bit better the last couple of laps before pitting, just to make sure that I have. But yeah, it was right on the limit. I think it was good. I was scared to pit early, so I was coming into traffic. So I was trying to extend it if I could. So yeah, I think some of the guys were managed to extend the stints a couple, but yeah.
I think you were one of, I believe, 9 or so drivers. EB, correct me, but definitely seemed to help out, and wasn't sure if you guys could actually do it or not. Next week we head to Daytona. Is that one of your stronger tracks, or how do you think that's going to go? Are you looking confident?
I do like Daytona though. It's a good track. Yeah, I definitely like it. Yeah, pretty tricky. Also in the night. Yeah, I don't know. I feel confident to maybe take a podium. At least to be in the fight for it. Just try to do today. Not many incidents. Don't fight too much. See what I am in the last half an hour, and then bring it home. So yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely back-to-back tracks where a lot of slipstream, a lot of fuel saving, that kind of strategy. Obviously worked well today, so hopefully no reason why I can't do it again. Congratulations on punching your ticket to your pro license here in the A-Class division, and congratulations on your win. And
Yeah,
see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week. Thank you, guys. It was good.
Thank you.
Well, that was a wonderful race. Great way to start out the season. I mean, what are you looking forward to? Obviously, Daytona's a famous track. What do you think you're looking forward to most for next week?
Oh man, I think every Daytona race we've done, there's been at least one of the two classes has finished within a second, bumper to bumper, and I don't see why we wouldn't have it again. Definitely a lot more traffic than we had here, so that will play into it a lot. Of course, the bus stop, love it or hate it. When there's nobody in front of you, it's tough enough. Now we're gonna have LMP2 cars flying up the inside, GT3 cars. Gonna be a lot of happy folks and probably a lot more unhappy folks, but it always creates some really interesting races of people trying to make some risky passes, bump drafting, fuel saving. It has the full works, so I'm really looking forward just to the whole package that Daytona brings, and it's a classic and a true staple for a reason, not an accident, that's for sure.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I'm looking forward to it as well. So, thank you for being with us today for the first race of this 2023 season 2. Already starting out with some good action, and we hope to see you again same time next week. Have a good night, everyone.